Session is being recorded. Thank you very much. And as traditional, we'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands and waterways on which we gather. Today, we pass through the lands of the Camaragal country, and thank you for their elders who have cared for this country for generations. We pay our respect to elders past, present, and emerging, and recognise their enduring connection to land, sea, sky, and community. We honour their wisdom, culture, and resilience. So welcome everybody to today's confirmation of candidature for Yijing Zhang. Before I hand over to Yijing, I'd like to introduce her supervisory panel, which is co-supervised by Chloe Gordon, Associate Supervisor Dr. Ziwen Chuba, who are led by the most competent Professor Teresa Dickey. And today's CoC panel, the experts are Professor Jessie Gao and Dr. Bridget Booker, both of IPPE, led by the Chair, Associate Professor Terence Sanders. And so without any further ado, Yijing, I'd like to hand over to you for your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ricky. Hi, everyone. I'm Yijing. Welcome to my CoC presentation. For today, I'd like to thank my supervisory team, Professor Teresa Dick, Dr. Chloe Gordon, and Dr. Ziwen Turber. They guided me again and again. They encouraged me a lot during my CoC preparation. So I'm very grateful. Now let me start with a question. If you could just change one thing to help your child do better at school, what would it be? Many people think about sending them to a better school, but in my thesis, I focus on the home learning environment. So my thesis title is Pathways and Buffers, How the Home Learning Environment Shapes the SES Achievement Link in School. Firstly, I'd like to introduce my three core concepts I used in my thesis. The first one is socioeconomic status, which is SES. In the past over 20 years, psychologists have rarely defined SES in theory. Instead, they just use some specific measures and call them measures of SES. So most measures include parental occupation, parental education level, the number of books at home. Next one is home learning environment, which is the quality and characteristics of the home environment that supports students' achievements through parental behavior, values, and structures. In study 2, I adopt self-determination theory to understand home learning environment, but I will explain this in detail in the following slides. As for student achievement outcomes, in the narrow definition, achievement outcomes is often measured by standardized test score or GPA, but in the broader sense are also focused on the non-cognitive achievement. This is because learning is still occur even with no significant improvement in academic achievement. So education equity is not only a global concern, but also an ethical principle closely linked to the notion of justice. It holds that all individuals, regardless of their background, should have the opportunity to reach the full potential. Also, despite decades of global reform efforts, students' achievement outcomes remain significantly shaped by their SES. Also, SES is stable and difficult to change. So why I choose home learning environment, the first reason is family factors has a greater impact on academic achievement than schools or communities. The next reason is family level variables, especially those related to the home learning environment, are easier to change. For example, in a study of 113 Australian families, Nicholas implemented an intervention. The results shows that the intervention group has a significantly improvement in the quality of home learning environment and the children's achievement. So than control group. Also, even under limited resources, improving the home learning environment can promote children's early cognitive development. And my thesis has two main contributions. The first one is theoretical contribution. I test the home learning environment as a moderator and comparing mediation and moderation models in the SES achievement link. The next one is methodological contribution. I adopt a combination of quantitative and qualitative analysis, and this mixed method design offers a more comprehensive outcome than either method alone. So this is my thesis overview. The study one is a meta-analysis, which is to integrate quantitative research on the relationship between SES, home learning environment, and student academic achievement. In study one, I only focus on academic achievement because study one is based on existing literature. So I focus on academic achievement to maintain a manageable scope. Study 2 is a longitudinal model, which is to examine whether home learning environment mediates or moderates the relationship between SES and achievement outcomes. Study 3 is a qualitative interviews, which is to explore how families construct, perceive in home learning and the relationship between these perceptions and practice and educational outcomes. So here's my planned thesis structure. I start with the introduction and rationale, followed by literature review. Then I will conduct the 3 studies. Finally, I will have a general discussion and implications. So my thesis has 2 main research questions. The first question is based on cultural capital theory. Bourdieu argues that cultural capital is primarily transmitted through advantaged families. Students of advantaged family are more familiar with elite culture, which is the mainstream culture of the education system and schools. The second question is based on self-determination theory and basic psychological need. A supportive home learning environment can promote achievement outcomes by meeting students' basic psychological needs. So I will introduce the 2 theories that I use in my thesis in detail. The first one is self-determination theory, which is an approach to research human motivation and personality that uses empirical approach that highlights human evolved inner resources for personality development and behavior self-regulation. As for basic psychological needs, a desire is seen as a basic psychological need only is essential for long-term well-being and growth. No meeting it leads to negative outcomes such as withdrawal, discomfort, and defensiveness. As for 3 basic psychological needs, autonomy refers to the need to feel self-directed and personally endorsed in one's action. Competence refers to the need to feel effective when interacting with the environment. And relatedness refers to the need to form meaningful connections with others. I will introduce how I apply basic psychological needs. Firstly, I link 3 core needs to the different types of parent support in the home learning environment. The first one is autonomy. Students with excellent academic achievement are more likely to receive autonomy support from their parents. In turn, students receive more parental autonomy support are more likely to do better in school. So I will use parental autonomy support to measure home learning environment, which can help children feel that their choices are meaningful and aligned with their own values. The next one is competence. From the self-determination theory perspective, structure focus on whether rules and expectations are consistent and whether there are clear consequences for behavior. So I will use parental structure support to measure home learning environment, which help children feel capable by setting clear and consistent expectations. The last one is relatedness. Parents monitor their children's learning progress and help their children to address school tasks. So I will also use parental guidance, parental supervision to measure home learning environment, which can help children feel they are not facing learning challenges alone. I also use basic psychological needs to understand the relationship between home learning environment and the achievement outcomes. A supportive home learning environment can meet students' basic psychological needs for autonomy, competence, and relatedness, which can help students do better at school. The second theory I used in my thesis is cultural capital theory. Bourdieu argues that cultural capital is primarily transmitted through advantaged family, enabling their children to gain educational advantages and maintain class positions. Also, cultural capital is passed down from generation to generation, owned by families and individuals, and is an important resource for promoting educational success. So I use cultural capital theory to understand SES and achievement outcomes. Students of advantaged family are more familiar with school culture. Also, one common sense is that advantaged families are more likely to invest the students' learning progress, so this can help students to do better at school. Study 1 is a meta-analysis. I first examine the overall strength of the relationship between SES and academic achievement. I then examine whether home learning environment can explain the relationship between SES and academic achievement. And also, I will examine whether a supportive home learning environment can interact with SES to influence academic achievement. And here are my research questions of study 1. I will examine home learning environment, whether home learning environment can mediate or moderate the relationship between SES and academic achievement. Also, I will explore what are the potential moderators of the indirect effect. Here are my inclusion and exclusion criteria. I focus on quantitative research and I only focus on the correlational studies. I focus on students in general school settings and still under the care of parents and guardians. And here are the search terms of study 1. I worked with a librarian and my supervisory team, and I've tried all of this. So I will extract demographic relevant variables and some potential moderators. For the potential moderators, the first one is culture context, specifically comparing the studies with Western countries such as the United Kingdom, the United States, and Australia, and East Asia countries such as People's Republic of China, South Korea, and Japan. The next one is sample gender, including studies with male students and female students. And the next one is sample age group, including studies with pre-age school students who are between 0 to 6 years old, and school-age students who are between 7 to 12 years old, and young adolescents who are between 13 to 15 years old. Followed by education settings such as school level, such as the primary school and secondary school, and school types such as public school, private school, and international school. The last one is different types of home learning environment, including studies with youth like parental involvement, parental guidance, parental support, and so on to measure home learning environment. Study 2 is a longitudinal model which is to seek to explore the underlying mechanisms that may explain or influence relationships between SES, home learning environment, and achievement outcomes. Here are my research questions of study 2. In study 2, I will also examine whether home learning environment can mediate or moderate the relationship between SES and achievement outcomes, but from a longitudinal perspective. I will also compare the mediation and moderation model to see which effect appears to be stronger. So I will use POPP dataset, which is a 4-week longitudinal study with a US parent sample. I've been granted access to the POPP dataset and its codebooks through my associate supervisor, Dr. Zhang. Here are 2 models I plan to analyze in my thesis. The first one is mediation model, which is called latent difference score mediation model. In this model, SES at wave 1 will serve as a predictor variable, and changes in home learning environment from wave 1 to wave 2 will serve as a mediator, and changes in achievement outcomes from wave 2 to wave 3 will serve as the outcome variable. The second model is moderation model, which is called latent moderated structural equations. In this model, I will examine whether home learning environment at wave 1 will moderate the relationship between SES at wave 1 and changes in achievement outcomes from wave 2 to wave 3. So here's my merged model. In the merged model, SES and home learning environment were measured at time 1, with home learning environment acting as a moderator of the relationship between SES and later student achievement outcomes. At time 2, home learning environment will serve as a mediator to link SES and student achievement outcomes at time 3. Also, student achievement outcomes at time 2 will serve as a control variable to explain the prior student achievement outcomes. Study 3 is a qualitative interview which aims to further explore and explain the findings of Study 2. So if the quantitative results of Study 2 shows that home learning environment can mediate or moderate the relationship between SES and achievement outcomes, I will explore how parents and students perceive the home learning environment. But if the quantitative results of Study 2 shows that home learning environment doesn't explain or doesn't moderate the relationship, I will also to explore the potential reasons that cannot be achieved through survey data alone. Here are the research questions of Study 3. The overall research question is how do students and parents perceive the home learning environment as shaping or impacting educational outcomes? From the parents' perspective, the question is how do parents understand a supportive home learning environment? And from the students' perspective, the question is how do students perceive a supportive home learning environment? So I will use reflexive thematic analysis to in Study 3, researchers select analytic approaches for all sorts of reasons, sometimes because an approach is familiar and comfort to themselves or to their research supervisor. So my co-supervisor, Dr. Chloe Golden, has expertise in reflexive thematic analysis. Also, I will conduct my reflexive thematic analysis according to the fixed-freeze analytical process. In Study 3, I will conduct a semi-structured interviews and students between 12 and 15 years old to keep the same age with Study 2, and including a range of SES backgrounds, enabling the representation from low, middle, and high SES groups. The gender will distribution as balanced as possible. The interview will include 20 families, 10 with female students and 10 with male students. And each family will include one parent and one student. In Study 3, I will adopt a constructionist epistemological stance. The first reason is the focus of my research is on perception rather than objective fact. The second reason is Study 3 emphasizes culture context. The meaning of home learning environment may vary across different SES groups. In Study 3, I aim to move beyond simply counting the frequency of the theme. Instead, I will explore in depth how students and parents perceive the home learning environment and the meanings it holds for them. So here are my plan and budget and timeline. That's all my presentation. Thank you. Questions are welcome.
Well done, Yijing. Thank you very much for the
Thank
presentation. Taryn, can I hand over to you as chair?
Yeah, thanks, Yijing. That was really good. I think socioeconomic status and academic achievement are so ubiquitous in the literature. I think it's nice to sort of explore the mechanisms for that. I have a couple of questions, and then I might pass over to the panel.
Thank you.
So, can you talk about, especially in your second study, can you talk about the definition of socioeconomic status that you're using? In the document, you lay out how socioeconomic status has been defined lots of different ways. You can do it from income or occupation or number of books or whatever it is. And each of those have sort of positives and limitations. They kind of get at a different aspect of socioeconomic status. So in your second study, how are you defining socioeconomic, or how are you operationalizing socioeconomic status?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for your question. Socioeconomic status, in my understanding, for my understanding, is a combination of social and economics. So I remember I saw a reference that said for the socioeconomic status, it is better to use a multidimensional concept than the single variables. So that means if we only use the family income, the outcome is not so beautiful. So it is better to use a multidimensional concept, such as we use the parental occupation, parental education level, or the number of books at home, or the family incomes. That will be a better like variables to measure it. So in my study too, I will also use a multidimensional concept to measure SES.
Okay, yeah, cool. I think that's the right approach. Something else you might consider in study 1 is to look at the definition of socioeconomic status as a moderator of the effect. You had sort of the definition of home education environment as a potential moderator, but I think you're going to find that the way that people have used socioeconomic status is also going to be quite different, and you probably want to see if different types of socioeconomic status result in different types of results when it comes to academic achievement or mediation pathways.
Yeah.
My other question was related to the models that you presented. So you've set out 2 models. You've got a mediation model and then a moderation model.
Yeah.
And I wasn't quite sure what was meant by the merged model. So I was struggling to come up with a scenario in which you could have socioeconomic status and academic achievement just moderated by the home education environment, implying that there's no line between socioeconomic status and the home learning environment. I'm struggling to imagine how you construct a home learning environment that isn't in some way related to socioeconomic status. And so I wondered if that merged model is meant to represent like a moderated mediation model, or if you're considering doing a moderated mediation model.
You mean, do you mean the merged model is like a moderated mediation model?
Well, that's what I was trying to ask. Is that your intention that it be a moderated mediation model?
For now, we plan to do the 2 models separately, because in the mediation model, like SES at wave 1 and the changes in home learning environment from wave 1 to wave 2, and the changes in achievement outcomes from wave 2 to wave 3. This model is fine because home learning environment will measure between the other variables. This is a good mediation. But for the moderation model, we need to make sure that SES and home learning environment measure at the same time, because it is a moderate model. So maybe for now we couldn't do a like moderated mediation model because we couldn't make sure for the moderation model, SES and home learning environment, we need to make sure they are measured at the same time. So we couldn't do a moderated mediation model, because a home learning environment is measured at different time.
Okay. I think I understand. Okay, thank you. I might ask Jesse first if you have any questions.
Well done, Yijing. A great presentation.
Thank you.
I got 2 questions. One is about the definition of home learning environments. I feel the definition is very broad in your documents. So, for example, involvement, interaction, provisions, structure, parental belief, and parental styles and so forth. So it's a very, very broad definition, and like I feel that probably gonna cause some challenges in your study 1. For example, it's really hard to come to such terms that really cover the full spectrums of home learning environments as you define here. For example, you may need to include some psychological control or autonomy support in your search term to cover parenting style. So, and then if you go for that such broad term of home learning environment, probably you're going to end up with many studies, because you got SES and performance. That is basically the most popular common structures are constructed in the literature. So have you done any like initial search for how many studies you have for the screening?
Yeah, for now I plan to see the, like you see, the different types of SES, the different types of measuring SES. I think we can do this like a potential moderators, because some authors measure SES like using the parental occupation. Some author measure SES using the like family income, we could see these like potential moderators to see the difference of the outcome.
Then I'm asking about like, have you done initial screen for your meta-analysis, and how many studies you come up for screening?
Oh,
So
yeah.
how many studies
Yeah,
did you find in your
right.
test search?
Yeah.
1123 for now.
11. So 23,011 is
1,000,
1,000 or
just
11,000?
over 1,000, right,
Yeah.
Yijing?
Yeah,
Because
over 1,000.
it's not that big, because we are looking, they have to have all three variables, which is not, there's not
Yeah.
that many studies that explicitly mention these three constructs.
But I think that the search term should be like, probably you need add more search term to cover the home learning environment. Because I found some terms missing, particularly for like parenting style stuff. So my second question is about just the purpose of the study 3. So if we assume that like in your study 1 and study 2, we assume you're gonna find like home learning environments are significant moderator mediators for the relationship between SES and your outcome, and you know what form of like learning environments is most beneficial for students, and probably you know what is the perceived parenting, perceived like home learning environment, and parents report home learning environment. What's the difference? What's the gap or relationship between the two things from your study 1 and 2? And I wonder how your study 3 can advance the knowledge above beyond study 1 and 2 by interviewing 20 families, in which case you still need to cover. You need to balance the different ethnicities, socioeconomic group, and gender of things. So I just wonder like how your study 3 can advance the knowledge.
Do you mean how I will recruit the 20 families to?
Yeah, it's like what kind of finding you expect from your study 2 above beyond your study 1 and 2?
Study 3. Yijing, why are you doing study 3?
So, yeah.
What's the value of study 3?
For example, I saw some reference say that one common sense is that the SES is higher, the home learning environment is higher. This is the one common sense. But when I saw some qualitative research shows that even in some lower SES families, their home learning environment is still higher. So this is because the different approaches they used. If we use the quantitative research, maybe the results shows that the SES is higher and the home learning environment is higher. But if some reference use the qualitative approach, the results seems quite different. So I want to use the study 3 to see some outcomes that cannot survey data shows alone. And this is the first reason. And in the second reason is we know the different types of measuring home learning environments also cause the different outcomes, such as in some East Asia countries, even the family is a like disadvantaged family, and their parents also hope their children to get a better achievement outcomes. That called the parental expectations. So it also depends on the different types of home learning environment. So I want to use the study 3 to achieve some results that cannot be used the quantitative results alone. Also, if we hypothesis is failed, such as for example, the home learning environment doesn't mediate or doesn't moderate the relationship between SES and achievement outcomes, we can also use the study 3 to explore why, just to explore some potential reasons of study 2.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bridget, do you have any questions?
Yeah. So first, Yijing, I just want to congratulate you on your CoC presentation.
Thank you.
Presentation had a very clear structure and it complemented your documents. I just have 2 questions. So my first question is around how you're linking the study 3 and study 2 together. So from what I gathered, your plans for study 3 is to further explain those findings from study 2. And I've noted that your data sets that you're using in study 2 uses the US-based data. While I assume from study 3 that you're drawing on the perspectives of Australian families to kind of explain those results. So I just wanted to see if you've considered how this kind of cross-context design might work, and if you anticipate or if you've thought about any challenges that you might experience linking those findings across the 2 different cultures and the 2 different educational systems.
Yeah, for the study 2, the data set were collected in the United States, and the study 3 I conducted the interviews in Australia, but the 2 countries are also the Western countries, so maybe it has the same culture. If I conducted the interview in some East Asia countries, the culture may quite different. But in the 2 Western countries, maybe the family, the Australian family can explain the quantitative results. Also, I will also keep the same age between the study 2 and study 3, because the age I plan to interview is between 12 and 15 years old. So yeah, that also that's my answer.
Okay, great. And so my second question, so I come from a public health background, and so I'm particularly interested in the kind of impact your work is going to have, as I believe your research could have a really meaningful impact on families, especially families from low SES backgrounds. So I just wanted to ask you, what do you see as the implications of your research?
The first one is from the theoretical background, I saw there are quite limited resources to examine the home learning environment as a mediator. So that is whether a supportive home learning environment can moderate the lower SES families and the achievement outcomes. So I also want to examine the whether home learning environment as a mediator or as a moderator to explain, to understand the relationship. And also I just saw a reference, as I before said, a qualitative reference, used in one reference shows that in some lower SES families, the author interviewed among some women, among some mothers, and to show that they will use some specific parental involvement to help their children do better at school. They will use some not that normal measures. So I also want to use the study 3 to see whether there are some not the normal tools to help their children do better at school through the interview.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
I might open it up to questions from the rest of the audience. If you just want to pop your hand up virtually if you have a question.
Sure. One, you're going to have a tricky problem because home learning environment and SES are conflated. I mean, even the definition that you use was books and home. Is books and home a measure of SES, or is that a measure of home learning environment? And when you have 2 variables that are highly correlated, or at least reasonably highly correlated, testing the interaction gets really messy. And it's even more messy if they're conflated. And so I think you're going to have to come up with tighter definitions as to what constitutes SES that is independent of home learning. I just was struck by the fact, the use of a number of books in home. The other question that I had was that I saw the presentation of self-determination theory, but I didn't see how that was actually implemented in your particular studies. Where does the SDT focus come in relation to your studies?
Okay. For the SDS, I plan to use the number of books at home to measure the SES because this is a quite classic variables of SES.
But it's also a measure of home learning environment.
Yeah, but in my thesis, I plan to measure home learning environments like how parents support their children.
So
it's not related to money. It's
not related
to
to
the
resources. Okay.
Yeah, it's not related to the resource. It just like the whether you support your students, whether you help your students to address some school tasks. Use the like parental autonomy support, parental structure support to help your child do better at school, to help your child address school tasks. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we agree with your point, Herb. Definitely, it's a bit fuzzy there, but as Yijing is saying, she'll focus on behaviors, particularly, which also ties into your second question, which she also implicitly mentioned in her response. It's about parental support and the way parents fulfill their children's needs from this perspective. So it's like an application of self-determination theory to parental support for the academic context. If that makes sense. But you are absolutely right in saying that it is fuzzy. That is true.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Herb. Conscious of time, is there any other last questions? No? Well, I thank everyone for their time. I thank the panel for their time as well. Before we close off, could you please give another round of applause for Yijing for a wonderful presentation today? Thank you very much, Yijing, and thank you, everybody. If I can ask the CoC panel and her HDR supervisory panel to stay online. For everybody else, thank you very much and have a great afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll call you later, Yijing. Well done. I'll speak to you after our meeting, okay?
Thank you so much.
Okay.